Hi, it's Miles Red Songbird, D. Michelle Birdsong in New York City. You're looking at a picture of God, Jesus Christ, and he is, above him is his son, the Father, his son, his Father. He is the Son of the Son, God. Here is a picture of Sherlock Holmes Museum. It's sent to me as a clue from Robin Birdsong, my daughter, who mainstreams clues to me from the UK. I was Sherlock Holmes, Eve, in a past life. So I have been doing investigative journalism in this life with the mainstreaming clues to you people. So let me begin with my report. Eve, that's me, the mother of the earth, has been in a concentration camp since before she, Miles Red, entered and insisted on remaining in the Eden. Although the first Eden she left due to her sympathetic nervous system pulling her to Earth to help atone. Okay, we're trying to atone for our sins here. And this is a song about Jesus Christ, Govinda Singh, Radhasamy, Lord of the Soul. We've been sold, and He's our Lord. He redeemed some of us. He can turn the tide and calm the angry sea. He alone decides who writes a symphony. Though it makes him sad to see the way we live, he'll always say, I forgive. Okay, now let's decode some of this information. He can turn the tide of the guilt-ridden entity. The Tides Foundation is funded by George Soros, who was Genghis Khan, Attila the Hun, and Brutus, who started the 23 stabbings of the Caesar, Judas Caesar. Judas Caesar was Abraham Lincoln. Tide decoded. True identity. ID for identity. Also it means T for transfer pleasure ID. He can turn the tide and calm the angry sea. He can make us happy. Jesus Christ, Govinda Singh. Okay, let's see what else we got. Hopes decoded. Eve is a counterpart for the United States. Hopes. Heaven orders presented by Eve, the servant. Counterpart. Account of parts she's played in the world. Okay, so he alone decides who writes a symphony. That's Bach, Beethoven, and Mozart, Tchaikovsky, and Chopin, having to do with the parts Eve has played. Edwin Birdsong, her first husband, was Bach. She herself was Beethoven. Her son, singing Birdsong, was Mozart. Tchaikovsky was Owen Benjamin, her husband. Owen Benjamin was also Lenny Bruce, Lieutenant General President Ulysses S. Grant. And again, the husband of Eve. Frederick Chopin Milo Yiannopoulos was also Liberace. Milo was the son of Eve in a past life. Though it makes him sad to see the way we live. Okay? Live decoded. Will, L for will. I, sex for pleasure. V for victory. Enter Eve. Will, pleasure, victory. Enter Eve. He'll always say, I forgive. I formally give to Eve everything. So I think the question here is yes. Pleasure and victory will enter Eve because Jesus Christ has just said he's formally giving to Eve everything. No. Kingdom. Dum ode. Kingdom. Kin, O-W for heart. Kin, heart. Ode. Dome, ode. God owes mother of the earth. This is not true. Let me correct this. What do I have here? The ancient Palestine. Where is it? No, that was Sodom, not Godom. Okay. Okay, I am an empath, and I feel the energy of others, but sometimes I'm wrong. Okay, God owes Mother of the Earth her worth. She's a treasure beyond measure, which was a Charan Singh Jesus Christ of the 20th century and the 1st century autobiography. I formally give to Eve everything, said Jesus Christ. Song, Everything I Have Is Yours, by Billy Eckstein. Now Gurinder Singh Dillon, Marshall Dillon, come to arrest the villains. Jesus Christ. At the Diafranchisement channel on YouTube. Page 2, mainstreaming news to you. Federal doctor, FDR. F for federal, GR for doctor. FDR, use of U.S. energy. Eve unknown. See use of Eve's reports. This Eve, X for unknown. Excuse Eve reports. Eve unknown. See energy of her reports. Okay, this is my report. Surprise! The Fed owns you. You don't own yourself. The Federal Reserve does. By Gary Vay for ViewZone magazine. Okay, okay, let's see, where am I here? During Franklin Roosevelt's presidency in 1933. I know his wife, Eleanor Roosevelt, now Judy Retzinger, a puppy energy. She lives here at St. Francis of Assisi, who's now, St. Francis is now Robin Birdsong, my daughter, disciple of Jesus Christ, the current Jesus Christ, current form of Jesus Christ. Judy Retzinger, Eleanor Roosevelt, has drawn some sketches for my book in progress called The Body Book of Questions. It is about questions that young kids would ask. The U.S. under the suns, people who live under the sun, was unable to pay its debt in 1933. The country was bankrupt. The private banks that made up the Federal Reserve demanded their money, and President Roosevelt responded. He had to use the only thing, or he chose to use the only thing that he thought was of any value to pay the banks and continue doing business with them. And the thing of value were the citizens of our country, the United States, us. You are the source. The property and assets of every living U.S. citizen is pledged as collateral for the national debt. Debt decoded. Daughter Edwin Birdsong, daughter of the sun Eve, Edwin Birdsong Truss. He was my first husband, Edwin Birdsong. He transitioned about a month ago. Trust decoded. Her U.S. saint, tongue of God's heart. Art, Eve's art. Tongue of God's heart is Eve's art. Eve Arden. That was a television show about a teacher who had a crush on another teacher, Mr. Boynton. Eve Arden, passionate teacher. Eve from Garden, Eve's passions features. The creatures, time for the grim reapers. Evil, vile crimes, grimes, lack of spines, those too lazy to use their minds, unlike Einstein, who stayed focused, concentrated almost all the time. Einstein, a hero of mine. Evangeline, who showed astrology is a science by interpreting the heavens' signs. Einstein, Evangeline, Eve, in the body of the Michelle Birdsong at this juncture. Three of a kind, debunked Cher. She wants to be a man. Talking about Cher Bono. Her kids named just to hide Cher's shame. She named her kid Chastity, hastily, so the world would think her kid was like a priest. But Chastity wanted to be what her mama wanted to be unconsciously. A man who can sleep around all over town and still be thought of as decent. Well, Cher's daughter piqued Cher's whole card, and her daughter, Chastity, became a hermaphrodite, a freak. You felt Chastity's feelings. Talking to Eve, this is Eve. Eve felt Chastity's feelings because you, Eve, are meek. Me, Eve, Evangeline, Einstein, I keep within. They're just three energies of who I've been. Still active parts of the hearts of me. The Michelle Birdsong. That's it. That's me, Michelle Birdsong. Okay. Alright, let's go to the next page. If you shed even one tear for a saint One day you can come near a saint and learn to earn the attributes of a saint and earn the right to one day call yourself a saint. Matthew 25, St. Matthew, now Dr. Oz, heart surgeon, most of his own host of his own television program. His history is Turkish. It's supposed to be an H here. Mehmet Oz, married with children. Mehmet Oz, yes. I went as a tornado to the Wizard of Oz. And also, St. Matthew was my husband, was Eve's husband. She married him. The king will reply, Matthew 25 in the Bible, the king will reply, truly I tell you, whatever you did for one of the least of these brothers and sisters of mine, you did for me. Then he will say to those on the left, depart from me, you who are cursed, into the eternal fire prepared for the devil and his angels. Okay, now let's go back a little. In the Act of 1871, the Congress, the traitors, signed into, passed a bill making the United States a corporation. And Ulysses S. Grant signed into law. And that's where the Federal Reserve got their power. And in 1871, he did that because after the Civil War, which Abraham Lincoln fought against the South to save the slaves and to save the Union. And we were bankrupt. And the money lenders, the Rothschilds, international financiers, came and said, you have to be a corporation in order for us to lend you money. So that's why, so he made us into a corporation. And the Rothschilds, with their usury fees, have gotten us so far into debt, and they hold our bond. They'll also rule the Federal Reserve. So I hope we can abolish the Federal Reserve and repeal the Act of 1871. Okay. Did evil. Doubters. Identity. ID for identity, vile. The doubters, the usurers, the Jews. Usury. U.S. hurry. Hurrying is satanic. Scurrying about grabbing more than you need. God, her, about Bing Crosby. His problem was greed for attention. 2 of his sons shot themselves in the head. Now Gary Crosby, now Noah Bublé, wants his daddy, Michael Bublé, dead because he's using his daddy in place of Bing Crosby, you see. Because he still has that anger, that rage in him for Crosby. Though Bublé lets himself be bled by his family, Bublé being led by Pontius Pilate as his wife, she wants to see Christ die twice. Okay. The U.S. is your jury. They have suffered the Jews' injury. Go to https allthat'sinteresting.com by Abby Normal, published March 15, 2016, updated October 22nd, 2018. October 22nd is Sing Birdsong, my son's birth month and day. betrayals. March 15th, the Ides of March. March decoded. Ma's arch enemies, assassins. As sins. Okay, so you got United States being asses and sinners. The Ides of March, identity, Ides decoded, ID for identity, evil sources. Ma's arch enemy. Okay. One of history's most notorious betrayals. Be Eve energy, equivalent of extraterrestrial. Adam's eye. These eyes are watching God. A book by Nora Zil Thurston. Adam Wills. Okay, so it's one of history's most notorious betrayals and brutal political assassinations. That of Julius Caesar, who was Abraham Lincoln, Anthony Tony Robbins, Eve's husband, in the past. So, assassination, that of Julius Caesar by his friend Brutus, who was George Soros. Soros decoded. Sorry, OWS for Hertz. Ow. Hertz. That's OW for so. Soros sows sorrow, filled hurts, and he is not sorry. Soros sows sorrow-filled hurts, and he is not sorry. Brutus issued the first stab of 23 wounds. First decoded, feel pleasure. Her rose to sainthood, ST for sainthood. She true to Adam, Buble, Michael, Mira. See through to he, she righteous spirit. Julius Caesar, play written by William Shakespeare, who was Eve. Eve entered mild red. Eve, even evening star. Venus, sainthood. U.S. sainthood, the biggest and brightest star. The sun said, I'm his star. Star saint, you are her. Okay? Go back to page 3. This is your life, Eve. Herstory. You cried for Christ's pain when you were a small child. You cried for a black child when you were 9 years old. You changed your style to fit the lowest, slowest, poorest. Her, wonderful. The heavenly fires are meant for those who quit, who no longer try, are not willing to cry, to express pain, who know no shame, for they feel they have already won the game. They don't have to play anymore. Let others strive. They are the queen bees. The heavenly fires are for those whose heart desires for a free ride. Heart decoded. Heaven earns art. Talking Sarah. Heaven's earth. Heaven's earth. Talking Sarah has tremendous worth. I spent, as Freud, over 30 years doing therapy, talking share therapy with Galileo, who was disheartened because he had found proof that the sun is God and in the heavens, and Jesus Christ is the God on earth. He has returned because we're at the ninth circle of hell, and he's making the judgments so we can begin heaven. So Galileo suffered tremendously under house arrest. The Catholic Church, all-powerful Catholic Church, arrested him when he said, listen, I found proof that what Copernicus said is true. The sun is the center. And so they said, you can't say that. You stop saying that. So they said to burn him at the stake. So he recanted his testimony. But they still put him under house arrest, where he stayed alone in his house for 8 years till he died, heartbroken. So when he was born in this life, he was practically suicidal. He had no will to live, or little will to live. And so we did, because he was born as my daughter, and we did talk and share therapy with her, for over 25 years. Plus I tried to give her the upbringing of heaven. Okay, we had a glorious time of it when she was a little girl. And she went to private school, which she earned because she worked hard in the Prep for Prep program, which was a program for minority students who were very bright. She went to China at 9 years old with the children as Teachers of Peace program as a little young ambassador, and she went to Nicaragua and asked, I think his name was Daniel Ortez, the dictator down there. She asked him a question, and it was on radio. And you know, she loves tennis. She studied the violin from age 5 to 15. She studied Latin, and she went to Grace Church School, which is one of the most prestigious private schools in Manhattan. She went to Friends Seminary, run by the Quakers. The Quakers were the abolitionists who helped the black people get out of slavery. So it was a fine, and she had wonderful friends at Friends Seminary. Her brother Sing Birdsong was there as well. He was in the ABC program, a Better Chance program. So these kids were tutored at school, at home by Eve. She had to pass an IQ test. She had to pass so many rigorous tests to get into the Prep for Prep program. And she had been tutored, like I said, by Eve at home. So she was brighter than the rest of the kids. And so that's the story of that. And she has come through therapy, willing now to be herself. And Jesus Christ is proud of her, right? Very proud of her. Because she has done the talk and share therapy for hours every day since she was 18 years old, for many years. And she suffered the shame of it, the pain of it, and now she has the gain of it. She has gained her soul back. Babaji owned her because he redeemed her and saved her. Now he's returning her to herself, with him always willing to guide her, as she is a granddaughter of the Son. Okay, he is the son of the Son. Eve is his sister and wife, the daughter of the Son, and her daughter, Robin Birdsong, is a granddaughter of the Son, our giver of life and sustainer of life. Okay, that's what I had to tell you today. That's my report. So I want to keep you informed, because this, what her father, Edwin Birdsong, said, it's not about money. It's about knowledge. It's about information. There's an imbalance in who knows what. So I'm finding out the information, having been Sherlock Holmes, and figuring it out, having been Albert Einstein, and presenting it to you as the Michelle Birdsong. So long.